Hey everyone. Today I want to talk about loading and using adventure cards in FoundryVTT. Now, the deck system in Foundry is not the greatest as far as the UI goes, so I also wrote a script to make it a lot easier for players so that they have a chance to use the cards more effectively. They can read them, all that kind of stuff. And so I'm going to go through how to load cards in automatically from your assets and then show you how it works.
Adventure and intrigue, fighting monsters out of our
Everyone, it's Carl with
league.
Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff. We'd love your support. We'd love for you to comment and provide your insight on how you use adventure cards in Foundry, if that's something you want to do. So, also have a podcast called Mastering the RPG that you might also want to check out, and that's more general topics as opposed to specific to Savage Worlds. So what do I want to talk about? Well, what I want to talk about is how to load adventure cards into Foundry and use them effectively, because the UI for decks and hands and piles and all that sort of thing that they call them in Foundry is just not very good and doesn't work very well for cards that you need to read them, look at the face of them. It's not just it's an ace of clubs or whatever, but you need to read them, understand what's on them, so that then you can play them. And then you want to play them in such a way that the other players can see it without them having to pull up the discard pile and look at the discard. It's I just wrote a script to make that so much easier. So now you can get a deck right from Peg if you want to. That's, I think, fully compatible with Foundry VTT. I don't have that. I have assets that I got through Kickstarters. You can get those. You can go to Peg and you can buy VTT assets, the images. So that's what I did. I got it through a Kickstarter, and so that's how I got all my adventure cards. I think I also got the Superpower adventure cards too through that, but I'm going to show just the regular ones. So let's go ahead and show the screen. So I've got Foundry up. I'm going to talk about what it does first before I show you the scripts and everything. So the first thing we want to do is load our adventure deck into the system. And so there's a script available online, and I'll have a link to that makes that super easy. So the first thing you need to do is take your digital assets, your card assets that you have, and you may have to, if you have like an online support, you may have to FTP them into your data. I happen to run a local one, so I just had to copy it into the folder. And then we run the script that, and I've loaded it already. So this script's whole purpose is to allow you to pick the cards, pick the deck, and then load the cards. So let's go ahead and run this script. And I'll, like I said, I'll have the link to the script in the notes. So again, the most important thing is take those digital assets you have, and you'll have probably a JPEG per card, plus one JPEG for the back of the card. So let's go ahead and run this script. So first we need to get the path, and then this is where you want to make sure it's in your game data. I have a game data path, and so I have my adventure cards, and then I have two sets of adventure cards. This script, when it loads the cards, it uses the name of the file as the name of the card. And so I went ahead and for my deck, what I got the assets, it said Adventure Card 1, Adventure Card 2. I went ahead and I renamed those to the actual name that's on the adventure card, so that when I load this in, and you can, when I load this in, you can see that all those names get put in. Now, you don't have to do that. It's not that important because it's not really going to come up, but I did that. So I select that folder that's got my cards in it. I'm going to, so I need to find my deck name that I used. And so the deck name is Adventure Deck. Background image. So you can see that I renamed all mine. We'll go back to game data. We'll go into this adventure cards because that's where I got my back. And we'll select the back. And then we'll give it a name. And I'm not sure why that's important, but I'm going to call it back. And then all the cards are imported. So now if we look at our adventure deck now, we have all our cards, and you can see my names. I have names now because I renamed the files the digital assets. So that's how we load our digital assets automatically. Again, I'll include the script. And so now we have that. So what we really want it to work, and here I'll show why this is kind of jinky. So here's an adventure hand. Let's say this is one of the player's hands. So you click on it. They've got a couple of cards. They can't really read them. They got to go to here to read them. And if they want to play it, then they have to pick the right discard pile. It's just a mess. And so I wrote a script that handles that for us. And so that script is called Play Adventure Card. And we'll edit it. And what we do to set this up is for each player would copy this into their they would copy the script. So you'd give them the text, copy the script. And so I'll have the text in the link so that you can get it. But you'd basically copy it from your text editor into this script box, create a script for each player. And then what they would do is they rename the name of their hand. So my hand is the adventure hand. They'd have the discard pile, which is adventure discard. But now I have to change the name because the deck is adventure deck. Oop. So now I have the deck that I'm drawing from, the discard pile name, and the hand, and all that. The one thing that really players are going to have to change is the hand, because each player you want to have a separate hand. So each player has their own hand, and so you'd create that. You'd create the hand for each player. So we have that. The only other thing we need to set is in this script, it says, if it's false for play to table, this automatically puts it in the chat when you play it. So that's important for if you want all the other players to see it. If you don't, you make this true, and then it will not show the card. It'll just put it into a discard pile. When I do the chase deck, that's important because the chase deck, you play the cards down face down, and then later the GM would flip all the cards up. And so it's going to be important because I'm going to reuse this script. I'll have a different video on chase deck that's much more complicated to run in Foundry, but we'll do that. So we have all our settings, and that's all we need to do. And so to get an adventure card, we just click on this. I already had 2 in my hand. You saw that when I showed the, and if I want to draw a card, I simply click draw, and then I can go back and I can see I now have 3 cards. If I want to play a card out of my hand, now that I can read them all and I can see, I'll say, okay, this is the adventure card I want to play. It appears in the chat window, so all the players can see it. The game master can see it. We can read the card, and then we can have fun. So that's it. That's the easiest thing to do now that we have all of this put together. So I'll put the script in the notes. So let's talk about how the players would do this. So you give the players a text file. We give the player the text file. And so I'm going to copy it from here. So I'm copying all of it. And then I already have a player logged in. And so the player, they would go and they would create a script. They paste it. And then they're going to change this to their name of their hand. And I think I don't have a separate hand set up for them, but you would set up a hand for each player. So this might be player 2 hand, and there'd be a player 1 hand and a player 3 hand, and they would change this hand name to theirs. And so then we would save the macro. They can play it just like before. Now remember, I'm pointing to the same hand as the game master had. So you'll see his cards because I'm looking at his hand, but it's the exact same thing. And so now each player would have their own hand. When you go to play a card, it comes up, you can read it very easily, and it makes adventure cards useful in Foundry. So it's really kind of that easy to do. And I'll put the script in the notes again. I'll put the script for automatically downloading and installing the cards. And maybe I'll put a link to the assets that I find on the PEG site, but you can find digital assets on the PEG site. You may already have them in a Kickstarter that you ran, or you may already have them in a Kickstarter that you already participated in. So just check out what assets you have. And the next time we'll go through chase decks, more complicated. And when I say chase deck, I'm talking about the Pathfinder chase deck. And we should have a lot of fun with that. So we'll catch you later. Once again, I'm Carl with Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff. All this material will be in the show notes, and we'll take it from there. Thanks much.